Alright, so we are making some wine chili today. And the recipe I got a long time ago, like 10-15 years ago. I found this recipe for wine chili. It was pretty good. I adapted it and made it my own. So now I call it Woody's Wine Chili. So first thing you want to do is you get 2 bell peppers, you chop them up, and you get 1 onion. You can have 1 large onion or you can use 2 medium onions. It just depends on your preference. We go ahead and we fry those up with some oil. You can use 4 tablespoons or you can use more. After you got those cooked and they're translucent, you go ahead and add 2.5 pounds of ground beef. And just cook that in there with those. Alright. Let that cook. And then what we'll do is after you cook that, you add some bouillon cubes. Add 2 bouillon cubes. And you add the wine. So I'll go ahead and get that ready while that cooks. Now the wine I use a Merlot wine, and it doesn't matter what brand it is. And the reason I use Merlot is because it's a dark, bitter red wine. So the reason you want to use a bitter wine is because you want it to have a bite to it. And so, you know, a lot of people use beer chili, but they'll use something stout or they'll use a lager or something like that. So you just want something that's bitter and has a bite. It doesn't have to be Merlot, but I prefer Merlot. It can be something else. But a red wine that's bitter. Alright, mix that up. That sounds delicious, don't it? Alright. And after we cook this, we'll add the bouillon cubes and the wine. We'll cook that very shortly because it'll be cooking the whole time. And then we'll add our tomatoes, which what we're going to use is we're going to use some stewed tomatoes. We're going to use about 32 ounces of whole peeled tomatoes. I said stewed, I meant whole peeled tomatoes. And then you're going to chop those up. You're going to separate the tomatoes from the juices. And then we also are going to add, when we do that, we'll add the garlic. I use a whole clove of garlic, and then I just crush it. I love garlic myself. And then we're going to add 2 cans of tomato paste, which are 6 ounces. So altogether about 12 ounces of tomato paste, and about 32 ounces of whole peeled tomatoes cut up. Alright, so that meat's almost cooked here. It's getting close. And it's going to be on the stove for a long time, so it don't really matter if it's not perfectly cooked, because you're going to leave it on the stove for quite a while. It'll get cooked. And it's beef, so it ain't going to kill you. Alright, so we stir this up, right? Go ahead and add our wine. Oh man, there goes my onion. My hands are clean, so it's cool. Alright, add 2/3 cup of wine. And this is something the original recipe didn't call for that much wine, but I liked more of a bite to it, so I went ahead and added more wine to my recipe whenever I changed it around. Because you always want to make every single recipe your own. That's what every good cook does. So you find a recipe, you make it. If you don't like it, just make it better. You know, add stuff to it, unless it's something just crazy that, you know, is unheard of, something weird. So I'm crushing up the bouillon cubes just to make it dissolve quicker, but it doesn't really matter at the same time because, you know, you can buy crumbles as well if you're that concerned about it. I am cooking this on a high heat. It's a large pan. Alright, so we got that. So we got our chopped tomatoes. It's better to use the peeled tomatoes. And what you can do is when you buy the peeled tomatoes, you could either use scissors to chop them up inside the can, or you can take out each tomato, put it in a bowl, and cut it or chop it while it's in the bowl. And then we will use our reserve juices later on. Alright, man, you can smell that wine. It smells good. Makes me want to drink some wine, is what it does. Alright. Then I'm going to go ahead and add our garlic. Like I said, I used the whole clove. You can add less if you want. Some people might just use like eight pieces or whatever. Then we will add our tomato paste. I'll just have to use a knife. Alright, so I got our tomato paste here. That's going to give it a real good tomato flavor. And once you make wine chili, you'll be surprised how awesome it is. And you'll basically just want to do wine chili all the time. I like to do different chilies, unique chilies, not something that's just hot. So a wine chili, maybe even a lager chili every now and then. Cincinnati chili is good. I have a really good Cincinnati chili. I might post that sometime. And it usually calls for like cinnamon and just different weird things that normally people don't cook with. I also have a 5-spice Cornish hen recipe that's just awesome. So be looking for those. Alright, about got all of our tomato paste added. Alright, so our wine is boiling, so the alcohol is going to boil out, so don't worry about that. There's charts online if you're worried about, consuming alcohol. There are charts, and it explains how long you cook or bake or whatever wine to get the alcohol out of it. So if you're real concerned about alcohol content, you can go online and research it and just put a cooking or baking with wine chart, and you'll find a chart about it. So if you're worried about it, you can find something, don't worry. It'll tell you exactly how long you need to cook with it. And most good cooks, whenever they're cooking with wine, drink wine themselves. Same with beer, whiskey, whatever. Alright, so we got that going. Next step, we're going to add our seasoning. So the seasoning I have here is I got all my seasonings. I went ahead and put them in a little cup here. We have 1½ teaspoons of paprika, 2½ teaspoons of chili powder, 1 teaspoon of cayenne pepper, 2½ teaspoons of dried basil, ½ a teaspoon of oregano dried, 2 tablespoons of parsley, ½ a teaspoon of black pepper, and 1 teaspoon of salt. I'm going to turn that down a little bit. So add all that in. Alright, stir that up real well. So I went ahead and turned the heat down to medium-high. Do not need it to be boiling now. Bringing it to a boil like that should have cooked off most of the alcohol. And then with it simmering, because it will simmer for a while, it'll go ahead and get the rest of the alcohol. Alright. So we got our seasoning in there. Excellent. Cool. Now next thing we're going to do alright, so I got some hot sauce. I usually just use 12 dashes. I'm going to go ahead and turn this down some more. It's still boiling pretty well. Turn it down to a medium-low. Alright, so I'm going to add 12 dashes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 14, why not? The original recipe I got that I changed, it called for jalapenos, but you find a lot of people don't really like jalapenos. So a lot of people like say they don't like chili because it's too spicy. And any good chilies, it's all about flavor with me, not so much the spice. Anybody can make a spicy chili. It's pretty easy. But what I'm going for is flavor. And if you have wine or something like that, you want to be able to taste that. You don't want to just burn your mouth off. You want to be able to taste it. And adding something like hot sauce, just any generic vinegar-based hot sauce. That's a little spicy, but not too spicy. But really, what you want is the vinegar, because we're going for bitter. We got the wine chili, and now we have a little bit of hot sauce that has vinegar in it. And if you wanted to measure it out, it'd be about 1.5 teaspoons. And then, of course, we have 1 can of red kidney beans. We'll go ahead and add that. Mix that up. And if you want, you can add the kidney beans after you let it simmer. That's totally fine. I drain those kidney beans, so I don't really want all the bean starches and all that in there. I don't want to taste the beans necessarily. And I've always told everybody's always told me how great my chili is. So every time we had like chili cook-offs, usually they grade chili cook-offs with heat, how hot it is, how much jalapenos it is in it, how chunky it is, if it's fresh recipe or fresh herbs, if it's thick, stuff like that. So I've got a lot of, I pretty much always win the popular vote, but I don't win based on the fact that it's not hot. It's not a hot chili, but everybody loves the flavor of it, so it always wins the popular vote. And then, oddly enough, like I always do, I add bay leaves. So I'm going to add about 5 bay leaves. And I'm just going to stir that in. Obviously you don't want to eat the bay leaves, but we're going to let it simmer, and it's going to give it a really extra unique flavor with the wine and the bay leaves in there. So we're going to let that simmer, maybe 30 minutes. I mean, everything's pretty much already cooked. You don't really have to let it simmer. I mean, it's pretty close to being edible now. If you wanted to eat it, it's already cooked. But it gives it a better flavor, and obviously if you let it sit overnight in the refrigerator, whenever you warm it up the next day, it's going to taste even better. So you can cook this the day before and put it in the fridge, and then heat it back up if you have a competition or something like that you're going to take it to. And then the last thing, and I may not show this because I do it after I let it simmer, is I get 3 tablespoons of flour and 3 tablespoons of cornmeal. I put it in a bowl. I add half a cup of water. I mix that up real well so it's not chunky, and I add that into the chili, and I stir it up. And what that does is, of course, it thickens it up, but it also gives it another unique flavor because it's adding corn flour, which is not corn, but at the same time it gives it just a really unique flavor also. So thanks for watching. Please watch my other posts. I do have a rabbit chili recipe already online, so it's you can use rabbit, you can use chicken. It's more of a white chili, and that's pretty good. And then of course I have another white chili recipe and Cincinnati chili. And please leave a comment, let me know what you think. What type of recipes are you looking for? I also have recipes that has like butternut squash and pumpkin chilies and stews, so you can add those. You can look at those if you want. Let me know what it is you're looking for, what type of unique recipe you want. I have Middle Eastern recipes, I have Spanish recipes, I have all sorts of recipes. So comment what it is you think I should add next, and I'll try to get it done for you. Thanks, guys.